I was with Scottie Pippen last week, and he talked about Zion Williamson. I asked Scottie if he was skeptical at all. And he looked at me like I had three heads, and he said he's the best prospect in college, he believes, since Michael Jordan. This came as somewhat of a shock to me. I don't know how Tony feels about it, but, you know, what do you, when you hear that kind of talk, and Scottie's not the only guy saying that, what do you think?
I don't put him in that rarefied air as of yet, Mike. I think the kid is exquisitely talented. Look, he's a social media wonder of the world. It's really insane what he brings to the table from a marketability perspective. And obviously he's able to move the needle for any franchise that gets him. I guess what could potentially get him in that rarefied air is the continued evolution of his game. You haven't seen him take a mid-range jump shot. He hasn't mastered a three-point shot yet. I still think there's certain aspects of his game he needs to continue to work on. But the upside is a scary part about him. And at 285 pounds, nobody's really going to stop him from driving to the rim and finishing over the top of people. Even when you think about some of the best shot blockers in the game, I think he has athleticism to finish over the top of them. So he's a highlight reel, but I'm not saying he's going to walk into the NBA and be a franchise player right away.
Okay, we'll get off Duke for a second. Let's go to number one Tennessee. Number one Tennessee for a few weeks now. Do you think they're the best team in the country?
I honestly don't know who the best team in the country is. And I can sit here every year and tell you that I think Duke has the most talent. I think Tennessee might be one of the most cohesive teams in the nation because of their vets. Guys like Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield, they have one of the top front courts. Bone is a guy that averages around 6.5 assists per game. He's long, he's lanky. Bowden's a guy that can score off the bench. They have all the pieces to win it. But, guys, we know this, and we do this every year. We sit there and we try to tell you who the best team is, but the best team doesn't always win the national championship. It's a team that gets hot at the right time. It's a team that gets put in the right region. UVA might not have the most talent, but if they get put in the right region, they could be our national champions. That's how this thing goes.
Kansas is always in this conversation, Jay, but they've lost a third player now that LeGerald Vick is on leave of absence. I look at the Jayhawks and think they're so vulnerable. Can they even win the Big 12 for the 500th consecutive year or whatever it is?
Mike, I don't have them win the Big 12. And I said this at the beginning of the year when they lost Udoka Azubuike. He was their legitimate post player, almost averaging a double-double. And he forced a double team. He made the job easier for Dedrick Lawson, who transferred in from Memphis, who's putting up insane numbers, by the way. He's extremely talented, but he's the only focal point. Now you lose LeGerald Vick, one of their top wing scoring threats. I don't see this team having all the pieces to win the Big 12 for, I think it was like, 15th consecutive time, which is an absurd number. I see Iowa State being the favorite in the Big 12. It's going to be between Iowa State and Kansas State.
We get you out of here on this, and I'll mention the defending national champions because nobody mentions Villanova. The defending national champions. That's Villanova. They lost to Furman. They lost to Penn. Shout out to Penn earlier this season. But they've now won 11 straight. I put a lot of tuition there, baby.
Yeah, you did.
And they play at number 10 Marquette tomorrow. Is Villanova, in your mind, Jay, back in the mix?
Back in the mix for what, though, TK? To win a championship? To win the Big East?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
No. The Big East, you assume they're capable of winning. Can they defend a championship?
I don't think they can. And Phil Booth and Eric Pascal are two really good players. And Gillespie obviously has really matured as a player. But I don't see this team being able to compete against the upper echelon. And by that, I mean the Dukes, the UVAs, the Tennessees, the Gonzagas, the North Carolinas. I think there's about 5 or 6 teams that are literally head over heels above the rest of the crew now. It doesn't mean that they're going to win it, but talented-wise, I don't think they have the talent to get there.